Welcome back, everyone. Thank you very much. We had a lot of deep talks last week about what's been going on. We got a little bit off topic, but it was all important. And but now we're ready to get back on topic. Like you were saying when we signed off last week, Tom, we got to start talking about things that are being drip fed to us.
Disclosure and how fast it's moving,
and what it means, really.
Yeah, what is the rationale behind our government suddenly becoming so truthful and
why now?
And giving us all this information?
Now, okay, so it started with the congressional hearing, which really blew everyone away. No, they didn't say that they're extraterrestrials, but they did come out and say that UFOs are real physical phenomenon. It's not misrepresentation of geese or Venus or swamp gas or some crap like that. Mm-hmm. That was amazing. But, since then, Congress didn't drop the ball after that. Right? Something that recently got noticed was and I got my notes right here because I don't really want to make a mistake on this because I really think that this information is really important. So according to the Intelligence Authorization Act for the fiscal year of 2023, now Tom, this is the budget that directly and completely controls the United States government's covert agencies. And in this report, two shocking things Congress found. And I'm quoting here, the first one, quoting, cross-domain transmedium risks to the national security of the United States are growing exponentially. So now let's take a look at that real fast. Cross-domain transmedium, that means UFOs.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. You're going to have to break that down word by word because I do not understand anything you just said.
Now, what's even more important is recently Congress, they made sure they redefined what UFOs pertain to. And they were very specific in their definition that it pertains to non-man-made. But I'll get to that. That's an important passage too. I'll get to that. But continuing this one here. So cross-domain transmedium, that means UFOs. It says that their risks to the national security of the United States are growing exponentially. So one of the things that they've been worried about is crashes, mid-air crashes. How soon, and has it happened already, where these transmedium vehicles are crashing into military or civilian aircraft? Because they don't communicate.
Has that happened, or there's just a fear that will happen?
Right now, it's a fear. But honestly, now that the United States government, and they're not the only ones, to one degree or another, either as a government or officials in the governments of Canada, Israel, France, Italy have all come forward believing that this is a true phenomenon. America's disclosure is a big thing because we're America. We're not the first to disclose or admit that as a nation or a politician for a particular nation, we believe this. So they're saying that this is growing exponentially, and that's the main reason that they're saying. Now, honestly, though, as we were talking about last week a little bit, if they wanted to attack us, Tom, it would have happened already. And at the level of technology it takes to be able to cross intergalactic space, we wouldn't have stood a chance. So why is this a threat? I don't know. Yeah, they're in our airspace all the time. We can't communicate with them. They're not obeying our air laws. Because why the hell should they, even if they understand them? Okay, now the second thing Congress found, and again, this is a direct quote here. Temporary non-attributed objects, aka those that are positively identified as man-made, will go to analysis. They will be passed to appropriate offices and should not be considered under the definition of unidentified aerospace undersea phenomenon. So right there, I told you I'd get to that in a moment. Right there,
Yeah.
the United States government, in the Pentagon's own paper, Congress, reading this, it says that they are objects that are man-made. We're not dealing with them. We are only dealing with these transmedium objects that we know are not man-made. And transmedium means, their own definition of it means a vehicle or device that is capable of moving between space to atmosphere and or atmosphere to sea.
Okay.
Outside of science fiction, Tom, we don't have this. Now, keep in mind that these are reports that are going back almost 70 years or a little more. Who, 70 years ago, would have had this technology? It would have been us. 70 years ago, it would have been us, the Russians, or the leftover Germans, maybe.
Maybe. Yeah, I could only think of us and Russians.
I mean, right now we talk about the possibilities of this is Chinese. Yeah, there might be some unknown UAPs that we're spotting nowadays that are Chinese tech, but anything going back 50, 60, 70 years ago? No. There's absolutely 100% no way China had transmedium vehicles 60, 70 years ago. Maybe Russia, maybe us, maybe the leftovers of Nazi Germany scientists, which us and Russia had all of anyway. But the possibility of that, Tom, I think is even a more amazing thing to consider maybe than aliens. That we actually had this technology 70 years ago and we still have people starving in the streets. We still have to pay for energy.
Yeah. Well, and what's that seems weird. Why would that be? Why would that technology be kept from us? But still, we're still being fed technology that supposedly is coming from reverse engineering.
It would be, I think, the highest crime ever committed on humanity as a whole if we have had the technology for free energy, anti-gravity, point-to-point transportation. Tom, if we had this, then the entire society of the world is different and changed. With all of this, I mean, there's almost no more jobs. There's no more need to do a job. If you have robots that can build themselves, fix themselves, run on free energy, they're going to do everything for us. I'm not even talking about AI. Let's not even go there yet. We should do another whole show on AI. Let's just talk about robots building robots to do everything for us, like the Jetsons or something. That's the level we would be at. Point-to-point transportation and free energy means no more fuel use. No more reliance on solar power, on fossil fuels. All of these companies and nations don't need to sell it to anyone. They're not making a penny on it anymore. Tom, there's going to be no...
Do you think we have this technology and we're suppressing it?
My personal opinion on this? Yes, I do.
Who's suppressing it? Who's the person that's saying everyone burn?
First and foremost, I think it originally all came down, and there's a very famous video that can very easily be looked up on Google with Eisenhower when he was leaving office of president, and he was doing his exiting speech on TV. Now he's a Republican who was in the military, a general, and he himself warned against what he called the military-industrial complex, that it is going to take control and take over everything. It's not going to be nations. It's not going to be businesses running anything. There is basically going to be one military industrial complex running everything. And that is the power grab they're going for. And we have to stop it. And he was completely ignored.
About this. Yeah.
So I think what happened is, if you look at the most ancient records on earth, our ancestors are very clear that there was a time when the gods ruled as kings here on earth. But then one day they left. And according to all these ancient records, when they left, they gave kingship of man to man. So everything that's happened since whatever you want to call them, the Anunnaki, the Nordics, the Greys, whoever it is, ever since they left, we have been in charge. And we have set up an amazing class system here on Earth to the degree where you don't necessarily know you're in a class system. I mean, if you think about it, the greatest prison is the prison the prisoners don't realize they're in. And the greatest prisoners or slaves anyone can have are the prisoners or slaves that don't realize that that's what they are. And that is what the ultimate power is, what we nowadays call the 1% of society, the 1% of humans. That's what they set up to keep this class system going. And this goes back to the most ancient of times, that the rich and the powerful, the ones with the bloodline that they say are directly related to the gods, because every ancient kingship in every ancient country said that they were kings because they were related to the gods. And that kept the control and power. And that's why I think this is all happening. Now, our alien cousins are back. Or they've always been here. They left some watchers here to watch over us, whatever. They are in the picture now. And we're at a technological level where it is possible that we could be entering a stage of humanity where we are on the threshold of joining our cosmic cousins. But we have to get over certain hurdles. Like last episode, I was talking about there's no hillbillies, there's no gangbangers or hood rats in space. We need as a society to get over this mentality that we have and literally become more peaceful and more introspective. Until then, they're not going to let us off this prison. We need to rehabilitate ourselves as a species. When we were first evolving, it was an okay survival technique to hate and try to kill anything that didn't look like you. Because if you came across another tribe and they didn't look like you, that means they were not part of your tribe. So any food, any resources, any women for procreation, you needed to protect. But nowadays, as a society, we are so far past the need to attack that which is different because we don't live like that anymore. We live in a society where you get a job and you make a paycheck and you're not out hunting with limited resources and a limited understanding of what you need to do to survive. I mean, back then, that was all it was: eat, sleep, screw, and prevent yourself from being eaten. Those were the only criteria to live. But nowadays, that is not it. So we have evolved to a point where we're past that, and we're at a technological level where it is feasible that we take one more step and we leave behind our hatred, our indignancy, our racism, our indifference, and we get rid of all that and just realize that we're all one. And that's all that matters. And that these are our cousins from space now. Then we'll get a chance to join the party, go to the big kids table. But I think that if we don't get to that point soon, and I mean within a generation, I mean soon, Tom, if we don't get to that point, I think they're going to do what they've done in the past. They're going to allow
Which is what?
a disaster to wipe most of us out. They're going to allow another flood or something similar. Maybe they are initiating it. Maybe they are slowly adding heat to the polar caps. Maybe they're not. And they're just watching it and letting it happen. Because if we get to the point where they accept us, then we can get off the planet and be saved, or something can be happen to reverse the process, but it wouldn't happen. But if we don't get there, then they'll just let it happen, knock us back to the Stone Age, and we have a reset and we get to start over. Try once again to get to that achievement level of joining our space cousins.
So it does sound like they're imposing this morality on us, this good, bad, evil, not evil.
I think it comes down to non-selfishness is really what I think it comes down to. I think
non-selfishness?
Non-selfishness. Don't be selfish. Don't be a prick, as we might say here on Earth. Just do the right thing. Be kind. Have empathy. Understand empathy. And then we will be able to accept each other, so we will be accepted by our cousins.
That's interesting. It's all about love and acceptance, man. The hippies were right.
I think they were. And, and 20 years ago, I would have argued that point. But
Well, here's the thing. That is the most of the scope of the messages that people do get when they claim to talk to extraterrestrials is love, peace, harmony.
Take care of the planet. Take care of each other.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing here the aliens need. There's nothing here. If you think about it,
exactly. That's the thing.
If these aliens can get anywhere in the galaxy, then it's not like they need our planet for resources. They don't need Earth for gold or for oil. The only thing that may be unique here, maybe, is us as a genetic example. Maybe that's the only thing that's here unique. But they wouldn't even need that, because if you listen to all the abductees and even some of the earlier experiencers, they've taken our DNA. They can clone us. And they can mate our clones to get new DNA. They don't need us. So no, I don't. They're only here to make sure that we don't go into space, like the Clanton boys. Pa, 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 pa. We're going to get wide Earth. Boo, boo, boo. That's not needed. That's not allowed in space. And we have no right to tell. Like I was saying in the last episode, here on Earth, you can hire a lawyer and say, they won't let me move into the building because he doesn't like the way I act. And that's discrimination. And you'll win. But in space, they don't care. You're not going to take them to court. You're not going to go, my Uncle Jebediah up in Kansas, mountains, I don't know, mountains in Kansas, but Arkansas, when the Jug Band, why don't he get to have his own spacey ship and fly around? No. Everything you said is why. Everything you said is why he's not going to get into space. I don't even think I'm going to cut it to get into space.
Is that a comforting thought that somebody's watching over?
It's the same thing humans have been told forever. Because almost every religion, like I was raised Roman Catholic. And that's exactly what I was told, that somebody in the sky is watching me. God, the image of God that I was given as a small little kid was like that drawing you would imagine of this white bearded guy sitting on a throne in clouds looking down and watching us. Like he has nothing better to do than just be a perv or something. So the idea that it's aliens that are watching us, waiting for us to get to a certain moment or not, or whether it's the idea of an old dude or a young lady or a spaghetti monster watching over us, it doesn't make a difference. It's the same concept.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And now with Congress saying that all of this is real, and they know that the military and the Pentagon have been keeping tabs on it, and that's why they're demanding all these informations to come forward. They verbally passed, just a few weeks back, they verbally passed an amendment to the whistleblowers law, that it will now extend to protect anybody, government agent, civilian, contractee, military personnel that has ever worked in any capacity and has any information about UFOs or UAPs. It doesn't matter how many NDAs they signed, they are now legally allowed to come to Congress and talk about it without legal repercussion. Now,
military officials been forced to sign NDAs to not talk about their thing?
I'm sure the government can force anybody to sign an NDA.
But has anybody talked about that?
Now, it gets tricky with the military, because I'm under the impression that most people in the military, even most generals and admirals, don't know what the hell is going on, that there's only a very small percentage of military personnel that need to be in the know, which is why the military doesn't know what the hell is going on, why the Air Force and the Navy has no idea what the hell is swarming their ships. It's not the fact that it's one military branch not talking to another. No military branch as a branch seems to know what's going on. Possibly an odd individual here and there. But, and they probably know more than the president, because the president's only a temporary employee. If you really think about it, he's only a temp. So all this thing about the presidents know everything, I think the Republicans have known the most. Since Ike was in office when all of this went down, he knew what was happening. He's a military man. Most Republicans are very staunch to back the military, unlike the Democrats. I think that the Republicans have known the most, but not everything. And honestly, tell you the truth, I think Trump, as a Republican, Trump has known the least.
Oh, yeah, I think they kept stuff from him.
Now, trans-medium objects and devices, I was mentioning this before, are defined by lawmakers, this is all a direct quote now, as being observed transitioning between space and the atmosphere, or atmosphere and a body of water. Now, this is defined by, quote, by Marek von Rennenkampf, who is the chief analyst with the State Department Bureau of Internal Security and Non-Proliferation. This is a chief analysis with the State Department. And this is what he is legally saying is now the definition of a transmedium object or device. It is physical. It is real. It is not Venus or swamp gas or geese or, you ate a bad meal and now you're seeing things like Scrooge thought was happening to him.
See, not only can we not talk about it, but we can't even talk about it directly. I mean, it's so crazy the hoops that these people jump through when talking about it, and the language, the confusing language they've developed around this. It's absurd.
Yeah, there is a little bit of room that some of the debunkers have been saying, no, they're not admitting that UFOs are alien in technology at all. But yeah, they are saying it. If you look at the first report directly from Congress.
Well, it's not a man-made object. I mean,
but then they end off saying we are not ruling out extraterrestrial origin. And that's what all the debunkers are ignoring. And that, that's another thing. I'm going to be talking about that with Tim. I got a whole thing I'm going into about debunkers versus the individuals that are backing this all up. And it's amazing how none of the debunkers have anywhere near any of the degrees or information or worked in any position to know what the hell they're talking about. But yeah, you got to check that out. That's going to be me and Tim are going to be talking about that.
Yeah, that'll be good. It gets really ridiculous with some of the debunkers. Talk about sometimes jumping through hoops just to admit you're right.
And nowadays at least they can talk about it. And slowly more and more officials are coming out of the woodwork. But you look at some of the people that have already spoken. I mean, you look at the highest level official that I can think of off the top of my head that has ever admitted to any of this is Paul Hellyer from Canada. Paul Hellyer held he held many jobs in the Canadian government, but at one time he was the Minister of Defense, second highest ranking next to the Prime Minister himself. And you can Google this. He was Always. Anyone that wanted to talk on the subject, he went on their show, their talk show, their podcast. He talked to everybody. And he said the same thing constantly. He said UFOs are real. He said UFOs are extraterrestrial in origin. They are as real. And this is a direct quote. He said they are as real as the planes flying over your head. He said he knew this for a fact because of his position as a politician. He knew that the American government and other friendly governments all were in on this. They all had deals with these aliens. He also said he knew for a fact that aliens are walking the earth among us right now, and we do not know it. Another reason I think they're using biological robots. No matter what they look like, if they build a biological robot that looks human and they put their mind in it, like Avatar, we would never know. They'd walk by us on the street observing everything like a goddamn holiday. And that's what Paul Hellyer said. I got the notes for the conversation I'm going to have with Tim next week or 2 weeks, depending on how this goes. So I can't think of the guy's name, but the head of Israeli's version of NASA, who just retired, he literally said all the same things as Paul Hellyer. He backed up everything Paul Hellyer has said. He said that the American government knows about this. We're involved in treaties and contracts with these aliens, and that's why nothing has been revealed. We have high-level officials around the world that are admitting to this left and right. But why isn't it on the news?
Well, it seems it's very strange how people are ignoring this. I'm sure a sociologist would have a reason why we have collectively turned our backs on this information, but I can't figure it out.
So, Tom, I got one other thing I want to talk about, but we're running out a little bit of time right now. Why don't we cut this and do another video for next week?
That sounds perfect.
All right, everyone, come back and join us next week, and we're going to finish up this thought on all the information that's been dumped on us lately.